With the bowl game all over, it's time to start looking at the transfer portal, which is set to open again this week. When the live period is over, what does BC do? I'm going to get into what their biggest need is, and it's going to surprise you.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $500 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. We're recording this at halftime of the second playoff game, and we're going to talk about a team that did not make the playoffs. That's the Boston College Eagles. We talk about them 5 times a week here on Locked On Boston College, the only daily Boston College podcast out there. But we kind of wrapped up our discussion of the Fenway Bowl. We can talk more about it another time. On tomorrow's show, we're going to have Beacon Street Ball to talk basketball. But the biggest news most of the month of December was the transfer portal, whether it was players coming in, players going out. It was just hectic. You had 12 players leaving. You have 8 players so far going in. You have potentially more players leaving after the bowl. We haven't heard any new names, but would it surprise me if a few more enter? I don't think so. But the biggest question is, what does BC have to do in the portal with their few new selections in the portal? The first thing I would say is let's look at their biggest area of need. And I know a lot of folks are looking at linebacker. That's like the biggest area of weakness for a lot of folks. And we'll talk about that in our second segment, but I honestly don't believe they are the linebacker is the biggest area. It's not. For me, watching the game on Thursday, I already lost. I mean, it's winter break. I've lost track of the dates, right? Watching that bowl game, there's still one position I still want to see BC hit hard in the portal, and that's the offensive guard position. I think this is bigger than linebacker, folks, because look at let's dissect what this position's going to turn into. Christian Mahogany is gone. He's already announced he's heading to the NFL draft. He is one of your best offensive linemen. He'll probably have the biggest, there's other guys that could, but he arguably could be the highest draft pick out of that line, that offensive line. Ozzie Trapilo might have a different thing to say about that, but Mahogany may be your biggest one. You're down him. You are down Kyle Hergel. Hergel is one of the more underrated players on that offensive line. I'd say good year. Every game you could count on him having a pre-snap penalty, but he was solid. You had 2 rock solid guards, something I said that they were going to have at the beginning of this year. I thought going into this season, what Jeff Hafley did, bringing back Mahogany, bringing in Hergel, really solidified a position that in 2022 was a major problem for Boston College. You go back to that year in 2022 in that offensive guard position, you're cycling in Dwayne Alec and Jackson Ness and Kevin Klein, Jack Conley. It just wasn't working. Now, going into next year, your 2 anchors are gone. And who is projected to take over? Jack Conley, Kevin Klein, and Jude Bowery. Now, Jude Bowery, sure, he could turn into something. He's been hurt a lot. Haven't seen much of him yet. Jack Conley, I loved him as the sixth offensive lineman. Do I want to see him starting every game? Probably not. I mean, his Pro Football Focus grade against a good SMU offensive line and defensive line was not very good. Same thing with Kevin Klein. Kevin Klein, we haven't seen anything from. He's coming back from a serious injury. I think he played 15 snaps all year. So you're going to go into next year, right now on paper, with that as your guards. Does that make you feel confident? No knock to any of those guys. And maybe they are the right answer. But having both guard positions with that giant question mark is something I'm more worried about than what we have at linebacker. You do not have the interior linemen on the roster right now that are experienced and high quality enough to do what you want to do with this run game and with Thomas Castellanos. Jeff Hafley, to his credit, if you've been following along on Eagle Insider, my site, small plug, we'll do bigger plugs later. This has been a position that he has been targeting. But remember, go back to 2022. Jeff Hafley has also said that recruiting or transfer portal offensive linemen was a major issue with him that year. He had a hard time doing it. Now, he did it this year. He got Hergel. Can he do it again? I've gone through the list of who they've offered, and a number of them are already gone. That doesn't mean that they could still be flipped. It's just they're starting to move, and Hafley hasn't got any of these interior offensive linemen yet. I still think this is the biggest area of need for BC. Because if this doesn't work next year, if you try these guys and you're like, oh, you know what, a couple extra years, they're going to be more solid, you're going to get a better play, but it doesn't work, then there's your Achilles heel right off the bat. They need to be able to fix this now. And honestly, like one offensive lineman would be fine. Two would be great. Two would be awesome. But if they just get one and then figure out between Conley, Alec, Klein, Hess, whoever they have on their roster, Jude Bowery, then you can figure that out. One guy is fine. Two is a bigger concern for me. So that is my biggest concern and the biggest area of need for Boston College heading into this transfer portal season. Part 2 of 5, it feels like, is the offensive guard spot. Now, in a moment, I want to answer something that you have all brought up, and that is the linebacker position. A lot of teeth gnashing here. We're going to talk about what they've done and what they can't do, what they haven't done, and where BC stands in the portal on them. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Now, winter is the place to go when you are heading over to FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on that action. With FanDuel, right now, new customers get 150 bets in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, I am watching the national championship game, college football playoffs game between Washington and Texas. I was on FanDuel and I saw there's a futures bet that if you, in the middle of this game, if you think Texas is going to win Washington is going to win this whole thing. They're going to beat Texas. They're going to beat Michigan. 7-1 odds. That's a good little futures bet right there. If you think, I'm watching Michael Penix Jr. out there balling like crazy. Doesn't seem that odd. So maybe you should head over to FanDuel. With live same-game parlays, you can find bets in the new Explore tab and find a parlay in the Parlay Hub. It's the best way to find popular parlays. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Last chance that you have right now I'm wrapping up a very busy 2023 year for me between my family and my work doing BC stuff with Eagle Insider and Locked On. Our YouTube channel in the span of a year jumped from about 400 subscribers to about 1,300 subscribers, all free. And if you haven't done so, go over to YouTube and hit that like and subscribe button. You can be one of those too. On Eagle Insider, I've added a staff that includes BC Hockey blogger, Mitch Wolf, Beacon Street blogger, and I got Katie Otis covering women's basketball. If you want insider coverage, we have free stuff on there. Believe me. If you want to get like free coverage, you can get that. Or if you want to support us for about $3.50 a month, you can subscribe for the entire year. You're paying like, less than a ticket to a BC sports game to get insider coverage. I'm giving you scoops in recruiting. I'm giving you basketball news with Beacon Street. I've got it all. Just head on over, sign up. We've almost doubled the amount of subscribers I had when I took over the site. And I want you to be part of it too. So head over to Eagle Insider right now. Now, if you head over to Eagle Insider and click on the message board, you go to the transfer portal tab. There is a very long conversation going on about how badly Boston College needs linebackers because everyone is saying, and I'm not blaming you. If this is what you believe, I'm not judging you, okay? That BC needs more linebackers because they looked out of place. They were struggling this season. They didn't play to the level that you hoped that they would play. And when you hear that like Cam Arnold is going to be coming back, you get a little bit worried that like, okay, are we going to have the same issues that we had this year and next year? Well, when you hear that BC has landed all these transfers, the first comment on every single thing that I put up is, AJ, when are we getting a linebacker? I'm not even joking. I put up a comment yesterday. I put up a retweet of an offer BC made to a defensive interior lineman from Troy. I think his name is TJ Jackson, if I remember correctly. First comment. That's great, but when are we getting a linebacker? So it's almost become a meme at this point because like BC hasn't offered a single linebacker. And this may, for many of you, you're thinking, AJ, when you said the offensive guard is the Achilles heel, this is the Achilles heel. But I'm going to tell you what I think, and what Mitch Wolf has also kind of laid out, why I don't think they're going after linebackers right now, and why I've seen zero interest in the staff in getting a linebacker. The first piece is that there aren't a lot of linebackers out there. And the linebackers that they have out there are not better than the guys that you have. Think about that. Go on Pro Football Focus for a second. I know they're not perfect. If you pulled up Cam Arnold's grade, okay? If I were to tell you he graded 10th best, not great, right? You know who the third best line player on the team was defensively? Vinny DePalma. And he scored a very solid 75. I know he's leaving, but it just shows you like the scouts see that these guys have some talent too. And I think that's what the staff is looking at. And the staff is looking at guys like Cam Arnold and then Davion Crouch. That was a name I watched. This guy, to me, strikes me as a Mike linebacker, the future for BC. What I saw out of him early was very impressive. And maybe what they do is, I'm going to guess that they keep Arnold at the middle linebacker, Mike linebacker, because that's like, the general out there. But if they don't, maybe they move Arnold around and they put Crouch up the middle. That could be a potential. The other piece is, I still think, and from what I've heard, it sounds like Bryce Steele could be coming back next year. That his career is not over. And he would be an improvement. You add in Davion Crouch, you add in Sione Hala, who looked physical out there. You guys watched him. He only played a few downs, and he was only scattered in the amount of play he had. But I thought he was very promising. You bring back Jalen Blackwell, so all of a sudden you have all these linebackers. You look at what's available in the transfer portal, and ask yourself, are they younger linebackers that are going to take time? Because that's not what you need. You don't need a linebacker that's going to take a whole year to figure out your system, or that's going to take a year to catch up, or has no experience at all. Or are you going to get a linebacker that is marginally less, and then the staff is saying, okay, or maybe even marginally, just a little bit more, and then you're going to alienate your locker room to get rid of a guy like Cam Arnold, or even any of these guys, like moving them down the pecking order for a guy that's like a little better. I'm not talking a lot better. Those are your options, because the guys that are better than what you have are not available for BC. They're going to end up at Blue Bloods. BC is they're just the linebackers in the transfer portal are all picking Ohio State, Notre Dame. They're going to go to those schools. It's just not happening for BC. And the way the stat, and this is again, I understand your frustrations. I would love to see maybe one guy come in and see if that can light a fire under these kids. I'm just telling you from a staff's perspective what I've heard and what I think BC is doing here. I think honestly, like if you were to ask the staff, this would be one position that they feel more confident in, which is kind of crazy, honestly. There's a lot of guys there that they think could step up and make a next move, and maybe this is going to be the fallacy in their brain that sinks the ship. Or maybe we're all wrong, and maybe there's going to be guys that step up and they figure things out next year. Maybe they're got a Sayoni Hala or a Davion Crouch, or the triumphant return of Bryce Steele. This is what does it for the Eagles. It's going to be a storyline definitely worth watching, because both sides, I think, have a very valid point. I think you fans are right. Like, you want more talent. You've sat through and watched the difference between the linebacker play now versus the linebacker play of Mark Herzlig, Luke Kuechly. Obviously, Luke Kuechly is a whole different ballgame. But even like Kevin Pierre-Louis or Isaiah Graham-Mobley, some of Max Richardson, Isaiah McDuffie, you've seen it kind of tail off. You're waiting for that guy that can make an impact play. We saw it at the end of the Fenway Bowl, but one play in an entire year, you need more of that, right? In our final segment, I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to tell you where the transfer portal situation is right now. We'll talk about what BC's doing next, and we'll get into that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. So the transfer portal's been quiet for a little while, and that's because right before Christmas, it went into a dead period. Now, any player that entered the transfer portal that BC was interested in, they couldn't reach out to them because they had to have the recruit initiate it themselves. So you may have seen some interesting names enter the transfer portal, and maybe BC tried to do some things to get their attention, or, I'm sure there's different ways you do it that us in the media don't know about. But on January 4th, the dead period is lifted. That means that coaches can scour the portal, try to find new names. And I think this is when the next wave. Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty. My mic just cut out. The next wave of offers that have gone out that could be the next transfer that you land, the next player that you bring in. This could be a very interesting time for Boston College. This also means that visits can happen. You're going to get guys on campus again, guys that you might not hear about, because, as I said, the staff is very, very quiet about this. So I'm very interested to see what happens in this next transfer portal segment, who they go after, the names that pop up. Make sure you go to Eagle Insider to find that all out. I'm going to get going now. We're going to keep this a nice short episode. Thank you all for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Make sure to subscribe to us on Eagle Insider. This is AJ Black. We'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.